Hi everyone, this is Annalyn Dela Cruz, and my presentation is on malnutrition and the female athlete triad. There are so many female athletes involved in a variety of sports, and it's hard to believe that there was actually a time where women could not participate in sports. It wasn't until the year 1972 that Title IX from the Education Amendment passed. This reads, "No person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance." This made it possible for girls to be involved in sports as well. If it wasn't for Title IX, we would not see young girls participating in sports in schools or even outside of schools. It's great that they have female athletes who are professionals that they see on TV to look up to. However, there are risks for girls being involved in sports. Young girls who are involved in sports are at risk for developing what's called the female athlete triad. It's composed of three conditions, including developing low bone density or early onset osteoporosis, developing irregular periods or amenorrhea, and also not eating enough, restricted eating, or an eating disorder. Low bone density can occur if the athlete is not taking in enough calcium, vitamin D, and also has little or no estrogen, so if they are not menstruating regularly. And on the far left, that's a picture of a healthy bone that has more bone mass, and the bone in the middle is a bone that has decreased bone density or bone mass, and the bone on the far right has osteoporosis. Osteoporosis is usually found in middle-aged to elderly women and is not something that typically occurs in young females. But if these young female athletes are not getting the proper nutrition, then they can develop early onset osteoporosis, which can lead to fractures. It's so important for these young athletes to get enough calcium and vitamin D for bone growth and development, because peak bone mass is acquired by age 18. Having low bone density at an early age can prevent them from their full potential growth. And if you look at the chart, you can see the difference in your bone mass throughout the age. On the solid black line, this is typically how much bone mass you should have according to your age. And by the time you hit 18 until about 50, the bone mass is pretty much the same. And it's not until after menopause where it starts to decrease. But when you see the broken black line, you can see how little that bone mass is, and this is due to inadequate lifestyle factors, and this can all be preventable. Amenorrhea and irregular periods can be seen in many young female athletes. And this is an absence of menstruation of one or more periods, and it's also defined as girls who have not begun menstruation by age 15. And the average age that girls start menstruation is about 12 and a half. And there are a few lifestyle factors that can cause amenorrhea, including very low body weight, over exercising, anorexia or eating disorders, and also stress. And so it's not so much that only very low body weight is going to cause amenorrhea, or just over exercising causes amenorrhea. It's a combination of all those things, but also it's not having proper nutrition. So if they have a very low body weight and they're over exercising and they're not eating enough to match their energy output, then that is the biggest contributor as to why they develop amenorrhea or irregular periods. Before the passing of Title IX in the 1800s, I had read that doctors believed that women shouldn't play any sports or over exercise because it was uh, damaging to their reproductive system and that they would become infertile. Ironically, one of the long term complications of amenorrhea is that they are at risk for decreased fertility, and this also contributes to the loss of bone density and can cause premature aging. There are sports that acquire a more lean physique, such as gymnastics, uh, running, and ballet. And many females are prone to developing eating disorders because they want to achieve having the ideal or desired body for the sport. Eating disorders can lead to anorexia, and that's when you have a very low body weight, um, and they restrict themselves from eating either very limited calories or just not eating at all. There's a fear of becoming fat, and also um, excessive exercise is involved. Bulimia is an eating disorder where people will eat a whole lot of food, and right afterwards they feel very guilty and very shameful about it, and they will either self induce vomiting or take laxatives to get rid of what they ate, and it just becomes a vicious cycle, as seen in this picture. So, does this mean that girls can't participate in sports and that they just have to watch from the sidelines? This is absolutely not true. The female athlete triad is preventable, and in order to prevent it, girls, parents, coaches all have to be educated on proper nutrition for the young athlete. Just because a girl wants to play sports doesn't mean that she is going to develop the female athlete triad. But it's important for her and the parents to understand what the female athlete triad is and how important nutrition is. Education is extremely important, and just to know the risk and be well informed of eating not only healthy but eating enough to meet those energy demands. Um, and coaches who will be a big part of an athlete's life should look for signs for the female athlete triad as well, to check in with their athletes to make sure that they are eating enough, possibly providing snacks, making sure that they are hydrated, and also it's important for nutrition wise to get adequate carbs, fat, and protein, and to drink water regularly, and to make sure that they are getting enough vitamins and minerals such as calcium, iron, fiber, and vitamin D. And it's important for these girls to have the support of their coaches and their parents primarily, because the parents will be the ones buying the food and making the food and being there for their child. They could also schedule appointments with their pediatricians to see if their child is growing okay and let the pediatrician know that they are involved in sports. During the adolescent years, children need 2,200 calories per day, but if they are an athlete, they need practically double the amount and possibly more. For carbohydrates, adolescent athletes need 2.25 to 3.5 grams per their body weight in pounds of carbs for moderate to intense training. And carbohydrate healthy sources include oatmeal, whole grain cereal, whole grain bread, and pasta. And it's important to also be educated in how frequent to eat and when to eat. So it's recommended to eat carbohydrates before and after exercise, so within 30 minutes. 30 minutes before the workout, 30 and within 30 minutes after the workout. And protein is very important for an athlete, and it helps with muscle repair and recovery. And it's recommended that they eat at 30% of the total calories should be from protein. And these protein sources include chicken, turkey, fish, and beans. And for fat, it should consist of 25 to 35% of total calories. And children actually oxidize fat more than carbs during prolonged activity. Compared to adults, they oxidize the carbohydrates. And fat sources include fish, nuts, and oils. But fats from fried food should still be limited even if they are an athlete. Vitamins and minerals are extremely important as well. The recommended intake for calcium is 1,300 milligrams, and those food sources include milk, cheese, broccoli, and spinach. And it's important to get adequate vitamin D as well. And with vitamin D, kids could get it from, or anyone can get it from sun exposure, as well as milk and vitamin D fortified foods. Iron is particularly important for female athletes, especially during their menstrual cycle. And for adolescents, they need at least 15 milligrams a day. And iron-rich foods includes eggs, leafy vegetables, beans, and meat. And iron is just very important to deliver oxygen to the muscles. And this is just an example of a meal plan for an athlete, and I do include snacks. It seems like a lot of food, but because this is a very critical period for children and their growth, it's still important for them to eat enough, not only as growing children, but as athletes as well. Proper nutritional intake is key to preventing the female athlete triad. Educating girls and as well as for the parents to have the education on the importance of eating enough can prevent the female athlete triad. Young girls should not feel discouraged from participating in sports and should continue to participate in sports if that's what they want to do. It's important for parents to really be involved in their lives and not only see their performance and see their success, but to also see how they're eating, what they're eating, and being responsible enough to provide snacks, remind them to eat, remind them to hydrate, and to be there for them emotionally if they are feeling pressures of being thin for their sport. It's important to remind them that depriving themselves of food does more harm to the body than good. And so having them be reminded by their parents and even their coaches that you have to eat and eat healthy, eat enough is extremely important for an athlete and also the growing child.